The concrete was still wet on the fourth floor when Samuel Adewale started his first shift. He could smell it. The alkaline tang of curing cement, sharp and mineral. The smell of a building becoming itself. Mixed with dust. Mixed with diesel from the generator that powered the floodlights on the perimeter. Mixed with the particular stillness of a construction site at night, when the machines stop and the building exhales, and the only sound is the settling of new concrete into the forms that will hold it for the next 50 years. Samuel was 26. He had been hired as a night watchman 3 days ago. The job was simple. Walk the perimeter of the Pinnacle Towers construction site from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., check the locks on the equipment shed, report anything unusual, stay awake. The pay was 28,000 naira per month. The uniform was a reflective vest and a torch that worked when it wanted to. The site was in Lekki, Lagos, a luxury residential development. 18 stories planned, 6 completed in skeleton. The kind of project that advertising billboards called an address for the future, and construction workers called that concrete monster on the expressway. The developer was Meridian Properties, a name that appeared on billboards and contracts and office doors, but belonged, as far as Samuel could determine, to nobody in particular. A company, a logo, a set of decisions that moved money and concrete and steel without a visible human hand. Samuel didn't care about the developer. He cared about the perimeter. He walked it every 90 minutes, a circuit that took 37 minutes if he kept his pace, 42 if the mud near the south gate was bad. He counted the locks. He checked the generator. He sat in the guard booth and drank the tea he brought from home in a thermos his mother had given him when he graduated secondary school. A thermos she considered more important than his diploma. He was good at the job. Watchmen were either good or absent. There was no middle ground. The good ones walked. The absent ones slept. Samuel walked. On his 9th night, he found the blanket. 7th floor, stairwell B. He was doing an interior check, not required by his contract, but Samuel was the kind of person who, when given a perimeter, expanded it. The building's interior was skeleton. Concrete columns, rebar stubs, open floors, no walls, no windows. Just the frame of something waiting to be filled. At night, with only his torch, the floors had the quality of a cathedral, vast, empty, the ceilings high, every sound echoing upward through the open stairwells. The blanket was on the 7th floor in the northeast corner. Folded. Not crumpled, folded. A gray wool blanket, army style, placed on the bare concrete with the precision of a person who folded blankets the way other people made beds. Beside it, a plastic bag containing a water bottle, half full, a torch, small, functional, and a rolled piece of paper held with a rubber band. Samuel touched nothing. He looked at the arrangement, the corner placement, the distance from the stairwell, the sight line to the perimeter fence. Whoever was sleeping here had chosen this spot deliberately. The northeast corner of the 7th floor gave a view, through the open columns, of both the main gate and the south access road. A person lying here could see anyone approaching while remaining invisible from below. He went back to his booth. He said nothing in his log. He wrote, "Interior check, clear." He returned the next night. The blanket was in the same position, but it had been slept on. The fold was different, slightly off-center, the weight distribution of a body visible in the creases. 3rd night, same. 4th night, same. The water bottle emptied and refilled, the blanket refolded. The piece of paper, still rolled, still rubber-banded, unmoved. 5th night, Samuel went to the 7th floor at 2 a.m. and sat down against the opposite column, 15 meters from the blanket, and waited. At 2:47 a.m., the stairwell door opened. The man was old, not elderly in the fragile sense, old in the structural sense. Late 70s. Tall once, now hunched from years of bending over things. Dark skin that had the weathered quality of clay that had been fired and survived, cracked in places, hard everywhere. White hair cropped short, hands that moved with a slowness that was not weakness but deliberation, every gesture considered before execution, every finger placed with intention. He wore clothes that had once been professional, trousers that had been pressed 1,000 times and were now surrendering to time. A shirt that had been white in a previous economy. Shoes, leather, resoled at least twice, the specific shoes of a man who had owned good things and maintained them past the point of maintenance. He walked to the northeast corner. He saw Samuel. He stopped. They looked at each other across 15 meters of bare concrete in the light of 2 torches on the 7th floor of an unfinished luxury building at 3 in the morning in Lekki, Lagos. "Good evening," Samuel said. The old man said nothing. His body was calculating. Samuel recognized the posture. Not fear, assessment. The rapid internal arithmetic of a person deciding between flight and confrontation and finding neither attractive. "I'm the night watchman," Samuel said. "I've known about the blanket for 5 days." Silence. The building settling. "You haven't reported it," the old man said. His voice was deep, careful. The voice of a man who had spent a lifetime in rooms where the words you chose determined what happened next. "No. Why?" "Because someone who folds a blanket like that on a concrete floor at 3 in the morning is not a thief. Thieves don't fold." The old man looked at him, at the 26-year-old watchman in the reflective vest with the unreliable torch, sitting on a construction site floor with a thermos of tea. "May I sit?" the old man asked. "It's your corner." The old man sat. On his blanket. The folded blanket that he unfolded with the specific care of a man for whom this piece of wool was not just bedding, but architecture. The defined space of his sleeping world, the perimeter of his private territory on a floor that belonged to no one. Samuel poured tea. He had 1 cup, the thermos cap. He poured half and held it out. The old man took it, drank, said nothing. They sat on the 7th floor and listened to the building, the concrete, the wind through the open columns, the distant generator. "My name is Samuel," Samuel said. "Emmanuel," the old man said. "Emmanuel Okuosa." He didn't say more. Samuel didn't ask. The routine established itself, the way routines do between men who work in the dark, without discussion, without agreement, through the silent negotiation of presence. Samuel did his rounds. At approximately 2:30 a.m., he went to the 7th floor. Emmanuel was always there by then, the blanket unfolded, the water bottle at the corner, the old man sitting against his column with the particular stillness of someone who knew how to occupy a space. Samuel brought tea. Emmanuel drank. They talked, not immediately, not every night. The conversations grew the way concrete cures, slowly, from the outside in. Samuel learned the surface things first. Emmanuel had been living on the street for 3 years. Before that, a shelter. Before that, a room he rented. Before that, a different life, the outlines of which Emmanuel traced without filling in, the way an architect sketches without rendering. Samuel noticed things. The way Emmanuel walked the floor, not randomly, in deliberate lines, as if following a grid invisible to Samuel, but perfectly visible to him. Emmanuel walked the building the way Samuel walked the perimeter, with ownership, with the specific attention of a man who was not visiting a space, but inhabiting it. The way Emmanuel touched the columns,
running his fingers along the concrete, feeling the surface, pausing at points where the formwork had left marks. Pressing his palm flat against the concrete the way a doctor presses a stethoscope, listening for something through the contact. The way Emmanuel looked at the stairwell, not at it, through it. Past the bare concrete and the rebar and the electrical conduits, seeing something that wasn't there yet, or something that was supposed to be there, or something that had been there in another version of this building, in another time. On the 12th night, Samuel asked, "You know this building?" Emmanuel was standing at the west column, his hand flat against it, his eyes directed at a point where two support beams intersected at an angle Samuel would have described as fine, and Emmanuel would have described as 7.3 degrees. "I designed this building," Emmanuel said. "Not this building. Not exactly." Emmanuel Okwuosa had been an architect, not a famous one. Famous architects designed museums and airports and buildings that appeared in magazines. Emmanuel had designed hospitals, public hospitals. For 31 years, from 1972 to 2003, he had worked for the Lagos State Ministry of Health, designing buildings where sick people could be treated and where the treatment would not kill them faster than the disease. He had been good at it, not because he was a genius, because he was obsessive. He measured airflow. He calculated natural light angles. He designed corridors wide enough for 2 gurneys to pass, the specific width that saved the 12 seconds between a patient arriving at emergency and a patient reaching surgery. He designed waiting rooms with windows positioned to catch the morning light, because studies he had read and cited and memorized and quoted at meetings where nobody wanted to hear them showed that patients in naturally lit waiting rooms reported lower anxiety. He was the kind of architect who designed for the body inside the building, rather than the eyes outside it. In 1998, he received the most significant commission of his career. The Lagos state government had approved funding for a new public hospital in Lekki, a 100-bed facility with an emergency ward, surgical theaters, a maternity wing, and a rehabilitation center. The site was a piece of government-owned land on the expressway. The project was to be Emmanuel's masterpiece. He designed it over 18 months. He drew the plans by hand. This was before the full transition to CAD, and Emmanuel believed that a hand drawing carried the weight of a body behind it, the specific pressure of a designer who had felt every line. The plans were meticulous. Every floor, every room, every corridor width. The staircase in stairwell B, the one that curved at a specific angle on the 7th floor, was designed to follow the building's structural load path while allowing natural light from the east-facing opening to reach the emergency intake 2 floors below. The hospital was never built. What happened was this. In 2002, the government changed. The new administration reviewed capital projects. The Lekki Hospital was reassessed. The land, government-owned, prime Lekki frontage, was reclassified. The building permit was transferred, not to the Ministry of Health, to a private development company, Meridian Properties. Emmanuel's design was not discarded. It was worse than discarded. It was adapted. The structural plans, the foundation work, the load-bearing calculations, all of it remained. The hospital's skeleton became the skeleton of a luxury apartment complex. His corridors, designed for gurneys,
became hallways for residents. His waiting rooms, designed for light and low anxiety, became lobbies with marble floors. His wards became apartments. His name was removed from the plans. The architectural credit, the line on the blueprint that said who had drawn it, was changed. Not to another architect's name, to no name. The design was attributed to Meridian's in-house team. Emmanuel Okuosa, 31 years of public service, 18 months of his best work, was erased. He protested, he filed complaints, he wrote letters to the ministry, to the Architectural Registration Council, to newspapers. Nobody responded. His complaints disappeared the way complaints disappear when they are addressed to systems that have already made their decision. His license was reviewed. Discrepancies were found. The review was conducted by people he had never met, based on evidence he was never shown. His license was suspended, then revoked. Without a license, he couldn't work. Without work, he couldn't pay rent. Without rent, the progression was hydraulic, each pressure creating the next. His wife had died in 2005. His children, 2 sons, both abroad, had stopped responding. Not from anger, from the specific exhaustion of watching a parent's decline and not being able to afford to intervene. He went from a flat to a room, from a room to a shelter, from a shelter to the street. From the street, eventually, inevitably, after 3 years of sleeping in bus stations and market corners and the specific geography of Lagos homelessness, back to the building. His building, the one he had designed. The one that was being built without his name, on land that was supposed to hold a hospital, by a company that had taken his plans and his career and his identity and was now pouring concrete into the forms he had calculated. He slept on the 7th floor because the 7th floor was where the main surgical theater was supposed to be, the room that would have saved the most lives. He slept in the northeast corner because the northeast corner, in his original design, was where the chief surgeon's office would have been, the room with the best view and the best light and the most privacy. He slept in his own building because it was the only thing left that remembered who he was. Samuel processed this the way he processed everything the building gave him, slowly, at night, over tea. "You have the original plans?" he asked. "The rolled paper, the rubber band." Emmanuel unrolled it on the concrete floor, using the water bottle and the torch as paperweights. The drawing was hand-done, pencil on drafting paper, yellowed, creased from years of being rolled and unrolled. But the lines were precise. The specific precision of a man who had spent 31 years drawing buildings, where the line on the paper would become the wall in the room where a patient would either live or die. "This is the 7th floor," Emmanuel said, pointing. "Surgical wing. 3 operating theaters. Here, the prep room. Here, scrub area. Here, post-operative recovery." His finger moved over the drawing the way his feet moved over the floor, with total certainty. "The ceiling height is 4.2 meters. The airflow calculations required a specific cross-ventilation pattern. The column spacing is exactly as built. They used my column spacing." Samuel looked at the drawing. He looked at the floor around him, the columns, the spacing, the curve of the stairwell visible through the open doorway. The building under construction was this drawing. Altered, repurposed, renamed, but this drawing. The bones were Emmanuel's. Every load-bearing wall, every foundation point, every structural calculation that held 18 stories of concrete in the air had been thought by the old man sitting on a folded blanket on the floor he had designed. "Can you prove it?" Samuel asked. "I have the originals, dated, stamped by the Ministry of Health, signed by me." He touched the drawing the way he touched the columns, with the pressure of recognition. But proof requires someone willing to look at it, and no one has been willing in 20 years. Samuel poured more tea. The thermos was running low. "I'm looking at it," he said. Samuel began his own investigation. Not a formal one. He was a night watchman with a secondary school certificate and a reflective vest. But he was a night watchman who walked 42 minutes every 90 minutes and had 13 hours per night to think. And thinking, applied over time, was as effective as any credential. He photographed the plans. With his phone, not a good phone, but a phone with a camera. He photographed each page, each drawing, each dated signature. He photographed the building, the columns, the stairwell, the specific structural details that matched Emmanuel's drawings like a face matches its reflection. He compared. He laid the photographs of the plans against the photographs of the construction, and he matched them, column by column, beam by beam, angle by angle. The curved stairwell in stairwell B, the column spacing on every floor, the foundation points visible in the basement. The match was absolute. This building was that drawing. 20 years of corporate ownership and rebranding and name erasing had not changed a single structural element. Meridian Properties had taken the skeleton and dressed it in a different skin, but the skeleton was Emmanuel's. Samuel also researched. The internet cafe near his flat between shifts. He searched for Emmanuel Okwuosa and found almost nothing. An architectural registration entry suspended. A mention in a 2001 ministry report as project lead for proposed Lekki Medical Center. A name that existed in the margins of government records and nowhere else. He searched for Meridian Properties. He found everything. Awards, features, profiles of the CEO, a man named Babatunde Cole, whose photograph showed a face that radiated the specific confidence of someone who had never been asked to justify anything. The Pinnacle Towers project was described as an original Meridian design conceived by our in-house architectural team. Original, in-house, conceived. Samuel sat in the internet cafe and read these words and felt the specific anger of a person who has been shown a lie and can see both sides of it, the lie and the truth it covers. He went to the site. He did his rounds. He went to the 7th floor. "I've been looking into Meridian," he said. Emmanuel was sitting on his blanket. The drawing was unrolled. He was studying it the way a man studies something he has memorized but cannot stop reading. And? They credited everything to their in-house team. Your name isn't anywhere. I know. There's a ceremony next month, a press event. The governor, Meridian's CEO, they're celebrating the completion of the structural frame. Emmanuel said nothing. They're going to stand on this building and take credit for your work in front of cameras, Samuel said. I know. And you're going to sleep on the 7th floor while they do it. Silence. The building settling, the generator humming. What would you suggest? Emmanuel asked. Samuel held his thermos, empty now, the night half over. I suggest we don't let them. Samuel's plan was not clever. It was straightforward in the way that most effective plans are, built on the principle that truth presented at the right time and in the right form doesn't need to be clever. He contacted a reporter, not a major one, a young journalist at an online publication who covered Lagos real estate and development, and who had, in Samuel's reading, the specific quality of a writer who asked questions that her subjects didn't want to answer. Her name was Funke Adeniyi. She was 29. She worked from her phone. She was interested. You're telling me the structural design of Pinnacle Towers was stolen from a public hospital plan in 1998? She said. I'm telling you, the architect is sleeping on the 7th floor of the building he designed because he has nowhere else to go, Samuel said. And I have photographs of his original drawings next to photographs of the construction. They're identical. Funke came to the site at 2 a.m. She climbed to the 7th floor. She met Emmanuel. She saw the drawings. She compared them to the building around her, the columns, the stairwell, the specific curve that Emmanuel had designed for light distribution and that now distributed nothing but luxury. She photographed everything. She recorded Emmanuel's account, the 31 years, the commission, the transfer, the license revocation, the 20-year erasure. "This is a story," she said, "but I need the ministry records to confirm the original commission." "The ministry logs are public record," Emmanuel said. "Project number LH-1998-47, Lekki Medical Center. Architect of record, Emmanuel Okwuosa." Funke pulled the records. They existed. The project number, the architect's name, the original commission, the transfer of the land permit in 2002, signed by an official who had subsequently joined Meridian's board of directors. The article ran 4 days before the ceremony. The headline was simple: "The architect sleeping inside the building they stole from him." The article included the photographs, Emmanuel's 1998 drawings beside the 2024 construction. Column by column, angle by angle. The curve of stairwell B drawn by hand on yellowed paper, and the same curve in poured concrete captured on Samuel's phone. It included the ministry records,
The project number, the land transfer, the board member who signed it and then joined Meridian. It included Emmanuel, his face, his story. The image of a man who had designed a hospital for the public and had been erased so that his work could be sold as luxury apartments to the private. The article went further than Funke had expected. It was shared. It was cited. It was read by people who had the specific combination of outrage and influence that turns an article into a pressure. The ceremony was canceled, not formally, postponed. Meridian issued a statement that used the word investigating 3 times, and the phrase, "We take these allegations seriously," twice, and said nothing at all. The Architectural Registration Council reopened Emmanuel's case. The records, the ones that had been used to revoke his license, were reviewed by people who were not connected to the people who had originally reviewed them. The license was reinstated. Not quickly. Bureaucracy moves at bureaucratic speed. But it was reinstated. Emmanuel Okwuosa's name was restored to the professional register 20 years after it had been removed. The land, the original government-owned land, became the subject of a legal review. The 2002 transfer was examined. The connections between the official who signed it and the company that received it were documented. The review was ongoing. None of this happened in a day. It happened the way buildings are built, one element at a time, each one dependent on the one before, the process slow and visible and structured. Emmanuel stopped sleeping on the 7th floor, not because he was forced to, because he was given a room. Funke's article had reached a retired professor of architecture at the University of Lagos, who had studied Emmanuel's hospital designs in the 1990s and had used them as examples in her teaching. She offered him a room in the university's guest quarters, temporary, until something more permanent could be arranged. He accepted. He moved his blanket, folded, precise, and his water bottle and his drawings and his torch. But before he left the building, he walked the 7th floor one more time. Samuel walked with him. 2 a.m., their usual time. The building humming with the generator and the concrete and the wind.
Emmanuel stopped at the northeast corner. His corner. The concrete was bare. The blanket was gone. The floor held the faint impression of a human body, the specific wear that comes from a person sleeping on concrete for months. "This was supposed to be the chief surgeon's office," he said. "The best view, the best light." "It still has the best view," Samuel said.
Emmanuel looked through the open columns. The Lekki skyline, the streetlights, the expressway. The view he had designed for a surgeon and had slept under as a homeless man.
20 years, he said. They took my name off the drawings. They took my license. They took the hospital. He touched the column, the concrete he had specified, the composition he had calculated. They couldn't take the building. The building is still mine. Every column knows who put it there. Samuel poured the last of the tea, 2 cups, the thermos cap. "You're a good watchman," Emmanuel said. "You're a good architect. I was homeless. You were sleeping in your own building. That's not homeless. That's stubborn." Emmanuel took the tea, the ghost of a smile, the specific expression of a man who has been seen after 20 years of invisibility and is still learning what that feels like. They drank. The building held them. The 7th floor, where the surgical theater should have been, where a hospital should have saved lives, where instead 2 men shared tea and the specific knowledge that the concrete under their feet belonged to the one who had drawn it, not the one who had bought it. Samuel finished his shift at 7 a.m. He walked the perimeter one last time, checked the locks, logged the night. "Interior check, all clear." He paused, then added, for the first time in his log, "The building is in good hands." Thanks for watching. If someone built something beautiful and the world erased their name, say it now. Speak their name. Tell us where you're watching from.